So we've had the Ranger for about a year now, and when I bought it, I didn't get the North Star edition, but I added pretty much everything except for the air conditioning and the windshield wiper. So I didn't think I needed the windshield wiper for it, and I would say for rain, you probably don't. I just put Rain-X on, and the rain just kind of beads up and runs off, especially if it's raining hard. That actually does help, but the light rain does kind of bead up on there and doesn't necessarily run off. You'd think with that pretty upright, fairly flat windshield that the wind would push the rain off better, but it's good enough where I didn't feel like I needed it in rain, but I definitely do feel like I need it in snow. When you have that warm windshield, the snow tends to stick on there, especially if you hit a drift and the snow flies on kind of suddenly in a large amount, then a windshield wiper would take it right off. Otherwise, I've had to stop multiple times to let the heater kind of catch up and melt the snow enough where it just kind of runs off, or else you got to get out and squeegee it off or wipe it off. So I think the windshield wiper definitely is nice to have. It's pretty expensive in my opinion, over $500. I did find it for 10% off at my local dealer. They helped me out there. So it was a little bit cheaper, but still kind of expensive. And then this is a new model, which also helped convince me to get it. The one that you're probably familiar seeing on the Ranger is kind of has that large cover covering the wiper motor. So I'm going to show you the difference between the one we're probably all used to and then the new model number now. So instead of that large cover for the motor, this is all you're going to see on the inside of your windshield. So right there, much smaller, less intrusive. I don't think that the other one really blocked my vision when I sat in the other machines that had those, but you could definitely tell it was there. It was noticeable. This will be a big improvement, in my opinion, for visibility, or just keeping your windshield kind of clear, uncluttered. The other thing that may or may not be a good thing is it comes with one switch to control the spray and the on-off for the wiper. So this will just mount to my dash, is where I'm going to put it. And instead of two switches on the old style, they had one for the spray and one for the wiper. So this will take up an accessory switch spot on the dash, but I think I will have plenty. I don't have to worry about filling all those up myself. So I think this is a plus to have it down on the dash and have a single switch controlling everything. So in the box, you of course get your instructions. You get some zip ties and a little hardware in there, some screws. The motor and cover, like I showed you, and the switch. Get some hose for the washer fluid reservoir. A couple more small bags of hardware, and the wire harness. I don't know, looking at it, it looks like it's going to be pretty straightforward. Pull some body panels off, pull the headliner down, and just route the wiring, plug it into the bus bar. DOGA, or D-O-G-A, is printed on a couple different things here. Printed on the wiper arm and printed on the cover for the motor. So I'm not familiar with that, but for those who might be, that looks like that's who makes this for Polaris. It says Wexco on the reservoir. So the install is complete. Took about an hour and a half, I suppose. Everything went pretty smooth. I want to go over some things that aren't really covered well in the instructions, or something that's different, I guess. So I'll just kind of go over the full installation, and we'll hit those differences as we go. So First, they have you remove this panel, and mine's a crew cab, but they show a regular cab in the instructions. They also show removing this panel. I did not do that, and it didn't cause me any issues. So I only removed this one here. It has these push pins, there's 5 of them, and then a couple of screws right above the mirror. That gave me access to everything I needed there. And then the other thing, they have you remove the entire top of the dash. Again, I didn't need to do that. I didn't want to do that because, I'll show you, if you have the tip out windshield, there are these pieces of weather stripping in here. And if you remove it, part of it's stuck to the dash and part of it is stuck to the frame of the vehicle and the lower plastic. So if you remove the dash, that's going to get destroyed. So I was trying to avoid that because that, as you can see, the windshield does create a crease there, and so it does block air and moisture, I guess, from getting in. So you don't need to do that, but you do have to remove this piece, the gauge cluster. You have to remove that. And then in order to install the switch, you have to remove this piece here. There are a couple body clips that are clearly indicated in the instructions on there. This one just easily removes with a couple body clips there, and if you have the tip out windshield, you got to take these T40 bolts out, and then it just slides forward or back towards you to pull it out. This one, once you get those 2 body clips out, you just pull the bottom of the panel out towards you and then slide it down out of a couple of pockets on the top. So pretty quick and easy there. I did relocate the mirror. Before I had the wiper, I had the mirror installed on the factory location there, and so I removed that, of course, for installation. And then you drill the holes in the panel to mount the motor. There are 2 holes that you drill. One is larger, and that's the motor shaft goes through, and one is smaller, and that just keeps the motor positioned so it doesn't rotate. I drilled a pilot hole from inside through the center of the holes that are already drilled in this metal panel here on the windshield. So I found the center, and then I came in from the outside, and one of those holes is a 3/4 inch, and the other one is smaller, right around a 1/4 inch, but it's in the instructions. But the way that I like to do a hole like that is with a step drill. So if you don't know what those are, they come in really handy for, I've used this multiple times on installations on this Ranger. So I got a set of 3 here. You can pick up cheap sets at Harbor Freight or, other places. This one I've had for years. It's worked really well for me. So this step drill goes up to the 3/4 and beyond that I needed for this. So it really worked well, smooth. And then the other thing I would suggest, since we're talking about tools, is getting yourself a set of these body clip removal tools. One is pretty much straight on, and then this is angled. They're priceless when you're doing jobs like that. And then this here is for those push pins, like in the roof liner of the Ranger. So you just slide it under the pin, squeeze, and it just pops it right out without damaging it or the liner. So it works really well also. So after you get those holes drilled, you mount the motor up there and the wiper arm, and it's pretty easy to follow the instructions. There's a couple of spacers, rubber washers, and it all goes on nice and easy. They do give you torque specs for that as well. They're pretty light torque specs. And then you route the wiring. Here's another thing that I ran into, I was running out of space in this grommet that goes through the firewall. So I ended up having to cut this hole larger because you have to put the plug for the switch through that hole. It's part of the wire harness that runs through there. So it's very large to go through there. So I had to open that up, but that's not going to be an issue. And then the other thing that I did different than the instructions is they wanted you to route, here's the sprayer hose line, and they wanted that routed through here and clipped on here and over there. Well, it was just gonna be in the way. So I routed it back here. You can't really see it, but it goes underneath all these wires. There's some space back there, so it's not gonna get pinched. And then I routed it over my coolant reservoir and behind the horn there. And then they give you a bunch of these zip tie clips. So that just pushes onto a thin part of the plastic back there and holds this securely, but it is a zip tie, so you could over tighten that and kink your line, causing a restriction. So, and then another difference that I did, you have to drill a 5/16 hole in your fender. This is different than previous models of wipers. The previous models would spray from up there. This one sprays from down here on the fender. So I drilled that hole. I put some masking tape over this, marked the location that they wanted me to drill, and then I actually took the sprayer before I drilled. I had somebody inside spraying the water, and I just kind of held it where I thought it would work best, and I ended up only moving it 1 inch closer to the center of the vehicle. So they were going to have me mount it here. I just moved it here. And then the sprayer nozzle, I don't think I'm going to be able to show it here, but each one of these nozzles, there's 2 nozzles coming out here. Each one of those, they're in a ball joint. In the instructions, it says that you can move it with a fingernail or similar. I couldn't move mine with my fingernail, so I actually took a pick. And then each of them moved easily. And then so I had somebody inside again spraying, and I aimed the spray, and there's quite a range of degrees that you can angle those sprayers. So we got what we thought was best, and I guess if we need to adjust it again, it's really easy to do that. And just a note in here, I like everything nice and clean. This was supposed to be temporary, these lights, but actually when they're bunched together like that, they work really well. And so that's why I have this kind of rigged up this way. I'm going to come up with a more permanent solution, but it's just holding them snug there so they don't move around in the grill. So these relays are part of the wiper system. You have to drill a hole in the indicated spot there and mount these. So I mounted those how they seem to fit best. It's not, the instructions wanted them over here. This seemed to work really well. And the wiper reservoir, the washer reservoir fit in there just fine, except this is part of the winch, and it was originally mounted with this back there. So it was right up against the reservoir, so I didn't like that. I thought that would damage these wires eventually. So I just loosened those bolts up and spun it around. So now the wires come out this side, and it works much better, less strain on those wires. I plugged into the bus bar here. I labeled that. I used the FAR plug, just seemed to work the best, and you can put it into any one of those. But that is a pretty slick system, just being able to plug in like that. So we'll go inside here and I'll show you how it sprays. First position, turns the wiper on. And it has a pretty good range. I mean, it starts up there, pretty much horizontal. Goes all the way over to there. So I think it covers the glass pretty well for a single wiper. And then the sprayer, let's see if we can get that on here. For the sprayer, you just hold the switch in the upper position. And that seems to cover everything really well also. So pretty happy with how that turned out. And then one other thing, I guess, I mounted this rear view mirror. This is a factory rear view mirror. Mounted it to the new wiper location, but I mounted it upside down. I didn't like it hanging down so far. It blocked your view out the windshield, so it still works really well. It's actually, compared to when it was mounted up here, it's closer to the windshield, which is a good thing. And I think this gives me a better field of view than I had when it was up there on the other factory mounting location. So I like that. I like where it is now. To route the wiring through the roll cage, it just goes in through this access hole right here and goes through the hollow section of the roll cage, through the A-pillar, and then comes out underneath through a hole right there. To give it clearance to come out of that hole, I removed the nut and bolt here for the hardware, for the lift, for the tip-out windshield. So that's not in the instructions. I just needed that clearance to get the wire to come through there. And then I just reinstalled the hardware. So like I said, I mean, the instructions are pretty clear. Took probably an hour and a half. And very basic tools. The step drill, I would recommend that. And the body panel removal tools, the body clip removal tools, those are really handy to have. So I'll put links to that stuff in the description below. Also links to some other things that might come up here in the video. Alright, so here's the old style. You can see the switches right up there for the wiper and the spray. But like I said, I don't think it really blocks your vision when you're looking out the windshield, but it does get your attention. I mean, it's just there. So the new style is better, in my opinion, for that reason. And the mirror mounts in the upper location with that style of wiper. So I don't know if there's another way to mount it, but that's where this one is mounted. And that worked fine. We had that mirror mounted like that for about a year. And one thing that I could do then was actually take a piece of foam and put it between the mirror and the headliner, and that took out any vibration when you're going down the road. So that was pretty nice to be able to do that. So I just had the Ranger out, plowed through some drifts that sprayed the glass with snow, and the wiper worked excellent. Took it right off, and it's heavy wet snow right now, so I think that wiper has plenty of power for anything that I'm gonna run through it. So again, please like and subscribe, comment below, and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.